Good afternoon, everybody. All right, everybody awake? Everybody awake? Okay. All right, thank you for joining our talk. Titles, Offensive Security and Career Growth in the Age of Gen I. I know all you guys are excited about AI. My name is Lorenzo White. I'm the Village Manager for Blacks in Cyber. I'm also an entrepreneur, IT and cybersecurity company. And here to have a wonderful conversation with our panel here. I'm going to allow each of them to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Jamal Theodore. I'm currently the manager at AWS, managing the third-party security program for their third-party security review program.
Hi, I'm Sammy Bush. I'm a security engineer on one of the AWS red teams.
Wesley Snell, Senior Manager for Proactive Security at AWS.
My name is Atablaye, Security Engineer on Prelaunch, AWS.
Thank you. All right, we want to make this talk as interactive as possible, so if anything comes up, you want to ask a question, just wave and we'll have a mic come out and then you can ask a question. And then we'll leave some time at the end to ask more questions. So we'll jump right in. First, we want to kind of ask each of the panelists kind of a little bit about their background and their kind of career path to where they are today.
All right, I'll start. Hey everyone, how you doing? Thank you for coming out first and foremost. So I've been in cybersecurity since 2012. I came through a government program. I did not have prior cyber experience at all before coming into being hired into that cyber program where I did cyber ops. So I kind of tell people I was kind of a trained hacker for the government in a way, which seems to be more open nowadays. Before that, I was just general IT, computer science degree, doing general IT jobs, wasn't too interested in my work. I was actually going towards a master's degree in bioinformatics, so I was actually pivoting to a whole different kind of career path. So I happened to get hired into one of the three-letter agencies, did work there for about 4 years. Then I transitioned to red teaming, actually pen testing for the State Department as a contractor, then going to a red teaming ops role at an investment bank. From there, went to a manager and then went to AWS. It's not until I left the government where I started to get like certifications and more specialized training like that to get to be competitive in the commercial market.
State Department?
Yep, yeah, actual State Department.
Hi, everyone. So I started pretty early. So I was in elementary, middle school. I wanted to do a lot of game design back then. So I'd play around with different 2D engines to try and build something in a multiplayer environment. And then one day I messed with the wrong engine, wrong mods, and I got hacked. Someone took over my laptop. They were popping up random stuff. Put all my passwords on pastebin. It was traumatic at that age. But that experience led me to start figuring out how they did it. So that got me into forensics, where I was doing a lot of digital forensics. I learned I set the wrong registry key, giving them remote access to some things. And then eventually I had an internship where my manager said, this year you're going to be applying forensics to offensive capabilities. And then that started getting me into the direction of offensive security and applying my forensic knowledge and just expanding after that.
Suddenly, I feel like I'm the oldest one up here. I've been in the industry now almost 25 years. I'm a career cybersecurity professional, not an IT guy. I went to school for network engineering and network security early 2000, I'll just say that. And so my first role was with a company out of Atlanta called Internet Security Systems. You may not remember, I know my good friend Ahmad does. They developed the first vulnerability scanner called Internet Scanner before Nessus came along. So I had the opportunity to work with them my sophomore year, and they ended up hiring me full-time after that internship. And so I switched my academic schedule, and I went full-time at night, and then I worked throughout the day. And so I essentially have been working ever since. And so moved on to Lockheed Martin, essentially my senior year in college. I got hired to be a senior security engineer working on the F-22 and F-35 program. Stayed there for 6 years. moved on to become the enterprise security architect for Coca-Cola. Then I moved into leadership and became the head of information security for the Georgia State Lottery. And since then, I've kind of matriculated both in the public and private sector, served as the senior director for the Cyber Command Center for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in the Obama administration, served as the vice president of application security for Equifax. I helped Equifax get through the breach. And then I'm with AWS now, having fun still. It certainly does not feel like 25 years, but when I come to places like DEF CON, I think about, someone asked me, when was your first time attending? And I said, I think it was 2005, 2006 or so. It's like, man, we're in 2025 now, so time is certainly moving by pretty fast, but happy to be here.
Great. Real quick, you're actually, I think I'm in 27 years, so I think I got you beat a little bit.
And listen, I'll happily hand that over.
Hello, everyone. I initially wanted to become a doctor, and in Ghana, when you're applying to college, you get to choose 4 majors. So I chose pharmacy, and computer science was my second option, but I made it into the computer science college, and I made a decision to pursue cybersecurity because I love watching action movies, and Mission Impossible was one of them. So I said, if I'm not going to be a doctor and I'm going to do cybersecurity, whatever Luther and I forgot his other name, whatever Luther does, Luther and Benji, whatever Luther and Benji does to help Ethan complete his missions, I want to do the same thing. And I thought cybersecurity was a good route to do that, and so I pursued that. I had my first internship in a bank, and so I learned about PCI and was excited about application security and continued my journey there until telco, and then did my master's in cybersecurity and joined AWS.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. All right, so let's go a little step further. So, in your guys' opinion, where is offensive security headed today? You know, how you seen things evolve in the past 3 to 5 years? You know, do you have any input on what you've seen change? I'd love to hear any of your comments.
So I'll keep it short because I've actually been in AppSec for the last 3 years. Before that, I was definitely offensive security. What I'll take away from pre-AI, I'll let some of the other folks talk about AI and OffSec because it's more recent. But coming from a red team perspective and building a red team, I'm a big proponent of like standing purple teams. One thing I don't like is red teams doing operations, having findings, and kicking it over the wall to the blue team. The purpose of the red team is to help train our blue team members who keep the organization safe, right? So one thing we did at the bank, and I have some colleagues here that were there with us, and actually some blue team folks, we moved deliberately to find ways that the red teamers actually learn the blue team job. So we actually had them start getting involved in triaging incidents and doing some of the SOC and IR aspects to really understand what it's like. We had them also integrate with like the threat intel and threat hunt teams to write signatures, test out those signatures, right? And do more rapid prototyping to see if we can stop threats and that we know we can emulate, that the threat hunters and the SOC may not think about, right? So I'm a big proponent of purple teaming, which I know has been growing and growing more and more over the years. But I'll give it to some other colleagues to talk about their experience.
Yeah, so when it comes to AI, I'm seeing red teams in the commercial space trying to find more efficiencies with it. So a lot of the normal red team activities are manual, like reconnaissance especially. You're setting up your scanners, you're looking through your Bloodhound results. When you're bringing AI into the picture, you're starting to look at how can I take this output from this tool, or even schedule all of these tools together in such a way that I can get the intelligence from it while I'm doing something else, kind of multi-threading my efforts here, so that something that would take 2-3 days can be down to 1-2 days.
It's okay. Okay, we'll move on. So another question: how do you see, if any of you guys experience, where do you see the tools going? Like seeing new capabilities coming in, seen things you wish that was there? You know, where's AI playing a role in the space?
I'll take that. AI is playing a critical part at the moment, certainly in my own organization, but certainly in the industry. Everything now is going to how can we be more efficient as an organization, as a team, et cetera. How can we spend less money but still do more? Right? But also we have engineers, I'm sure many of you, there are tedious things, there are things that you do about your day-to-day work that you just don't need to necessarily do. You could be doing more complex, more valuable things with your time, and you can use AI to do more of that automation of some of those tedious related tasks. But also AI is being used right now to make us more consistent in the type of work that we're doing as well. When you look at, if there are an array of different types of test cases that you need to execute on a day-to-day basis, there are some mistakes that humans can make. Consistency is there with AI, and so we need to embrace that. And if I had to we were having a conversation, John and I, my boss, at lunch with a vendor earlier today. I said one of the things that I'm seeing over the last 12 to 18 months is that the industry as a whole, we are embracing this now. I think 24 months ago when this Gen AI really kind of started to emerge on the scene, significantly, there was some resistance in the industry to use it. Number one, we didn't know how it was going to impact our own careers and the work and the jobs that we perform every day. But what I've started to see now in the last 10 to 12 months is the embrace of the technology. How can we use this technology to enhance the value that we are providing to organizations? And I think that's a great thing right now that we're seeing.
Great. You want to add anything?
Yeah, to add on to your point about enhancement, I'm seeing a lot of models that, as a red teamer, they're kind of like an assistant, someone you can ask questions of and to help do like a rapid prototyping. So like just a few days ago, I read a report on how an APT was injecting their payloads into JPEG images to get past any EDRs and then pulling them straight out of that. And I thought, I'm going to recreate that capability. And so I use this AI that we have internally to basically start coding it. And like within 30 seconds, 40 seconds, yeah, exactly what I would have done if I put in a couple hours of work, right there. Input, output, the whole chain. And I was impressed. I loved it.
Awesome.
I was just going to add that it's definitely making us more efficient. Just to piggyback on what Sammy mentioned, initially, if I run into a bug, I would spend about an hour or two at just debugging it and going to Stack Overflow, but I don't do that. I don't remember the last time I went to Stack Overflow to debug an issue. And so I definitely leverage AI, and it's definitely making us more efficient in our day-to-day work.
So, Prudence, you happen to be on my verification of fixed team in my organization. How is Gen AI transforming the work that you're doing there?
It's making us... That's a good question, Wes. I believe, personally, we're using it to reach out to customers faster. So we have new features like a chatbot to answer questions that we don't, to do things that engineers don't necessarily have to do. So when our customers want to reach out to us, we have developed a chatbot for them to be able to speak to the chatbot directly and save us time from answering questions that are repetitive. And so it's making us focus on things we need to do, human beings actually need to do, and being like a customer service agent for us. That's one way we're using it.
Great. So, that's a common theme, being more efficient, getting more done. Tell me the other side of things. What are you scared about? What are you worried about with AI coming into play? Is there things we didn't place certain guardrails? Are you worried about biases? What is the negative part of AI for you?
Well, I can start real quick. So at a high level, I also go by the mantra shared by one of my security engineers, not to automate yourself stupid, right? So it's important for people to understand what AI can provide and what it can't. and what still needs like the high, the human judgment and to really, do. So as we use AI, understand around, number one, it's around some of the guardrails controls that you mentioned. Organizations have to understand the tools they're using, where the data is going, if it's training in a way that other customers of the AI product are also seeing the outputs. So you don't want to put proprietary or zero-day stuff in there if you're not really ready to release it, right? Because it's going to spit it out to the threat actor, to other customers, and they'll see exactly what's going on, right? And ask the right questions. So there's a lot of guardrails and controls in AppSec that we care about around the AI. There's also cost to it, which also needs to be accounted for from a business perspective. But I'll stop there for a second.
Yeah, to kind of look at that from a different angle. One thing I'm afraid of is the wide usage of AI to make entire applications with very little human in the chain there. So like a lot of the things that are coming out, they're coming out with very simple vulnerabilities because sometimes the people making that, they don't understand what they're implementing is based off of a training model, off of like a tutorial on a wiki page somewhere. And so you end up with all these things in the wild that have vulnerabilities that someone would have caught years ago. And so I see a resurgence of simple problems coming up, and I'm sure bug bounty is going to skyrocket because of it.
I think sometimes when we talk about the fields of AI or adopting AI, we all think about technology. But my particular concern is in the field of healthcare. I have seen doctors, and this is even a personal experience, before AI, I have been misdiagnosed before. And the last time I went to the hospital, the doctor reached out to me and said, do you mind if I use this app to record a conversation so it transcribes our conversation for his notes? And I was a bit skeptical about it, but I was also looking forward to my after-visit summary. And in the after-visit summary, there were some things that were in there that we never discussed. And so my concern is, in as much as it's making us efficient and it's making us do things better and faster, we should not neglect the fact that we actually need to do our work. And we need to come to a point where we draw a line and say, okay, this is where we're going to put this guardrail and say, human beings still need to be in the loop, and we're not going to trust AI to do everything. And so that's just my thoughts.
That's a very good example. Listen, I mean, we are in Black and Cyber Village here at DEF CON. Like, we have to talk very clear and plain and simple. We need more diversity in the space. Individuals who representing different parts of our society, the world, producing this type of technology, because if we don't, it's going to start emulating the same biases that we see on a day-to-day basis. That is one of my major concerns. Has been, continues to be. We have to encourage our youth folks who are looking at different areas where they should be going, push them into this space. Because if not, we're just essentially going to be programming these systems, these advanced systems, to replicate the same issues that we have today. Like, that's a big issue that I think we need to talk more about, that we don't talk more about. When we talk about AI, we're always talking about the technical aspect of things and the privacy related concerns and what guardrails we need to put in place and things of that nature, but we're not talking about who's developing that model there. What data set is that model being trained on? Is that data set encompassing of a diverse demographic, so it should be much more widespread? And so if you're talking about in the healthcare field, where we have systems, now that are diagnosing individuals and things of that nature. Like, for an example, the mortality rate in African American women who are pregnant is very high, right? If you don't have that data within the data set that you are training data that OBGYN are using in that space, then how is that going to be beneficial for our community, right? So those are some of the concerns that I continue to have with the technology as a whole. There's a lot more benefits out there, and I think the benefits can potentially outweigh any disadvantages, but we need to talk more about that. We need to have regulations around that. We need more companies who are very vocal and active in terms of trying to increase diversity and things of that nature in the technology space because of issues like that.
Yeah, all good points. And I always tell people, remember that AI doesn't know when it's wrong. So it's gonna seem like it knows everything until you fact check. So you still need to use it as a tool and not as a replacement for a person.
In some cases, it will argue against you and say, no, I'm right. Right? We call that hallucination, right?
Yep.
It thinks it's correct.
Yeah.
But it may be based on the data set that it has been trained on.
Right.
And so that's things we need to think through.
Yeah. And what about, do you guys get into any kind of GRC issues or thoughts when it comes to AI?
I mean, there's a lot of privacy-related issues with that. You go back to data set. I mean, there are HIPAA-related, concerns when you're thinking about training it from a healthcare perspective. What does that look like? We have no guardrails around the use of that today. You look in the financial industry where models are now being trained with some of the financial institutions there and people's net worth and their investments and things of that nature that are part of that data set now that has been trained. What type of privacy concerns does that open up as well? Who has access to that data, right? Is the IRS, or whomever else may have access to that data now so they can use that against you? There's so many different things that come through, and I believe that, governments across the world are going to have to come together and to put, common, regulations in place about the proper uses of that. And I think we in the industry are going to have to lead that discussion. And so I just, again, encourage, more folks like us, diverse in the room, to be a part of that dialogue.
Nice. You have anything?
Yeah, one thing that just came to mind here in West real quick, he said we really need to push people into that field, especially from diverse communities, so that the data is represented correctly. But at the same time, something that came to mind is we also need advocates that can speak on behalf of those diverse communities. Because if something's not right, unless it's hitting the people in their pocketbooks, or people in power, or politicians, or the billionaires and millionaires, those things will not be fixed. So it's just something that just quickly came to mind, like, yes, we need people like garbage in, garbage out, so people from diverse perspectives to put in the right information and the diverse information, but also when the wrong information is coming out to really call it out. That's just something that just clicked for me as well.
Make it more plain, because I like to give it to folks straight. If you have the privilege to be at the table, and you know that there is something or a group, a minority group that is not at the table, you should be an advocate for that group to get them into the room, to get them into the space. What does that look like for me as a leader in terms of hiring? Who are my leaders? Who am I hiring? Who's a part of the application pool, right? Having that conversation with the recruiters and things of that nature. It's not about trying to meet quotas and things of that nature. No, it's going a step deeper. Who are you? What resumes are you pulling, right? Like, are you going to the same source? So you have to advocate in that way. And so I think that's what you're referring to. So become an ally as well. That's how you help in this space.
Great, thank you for that. Now, shifting slightly back towards the career aspect of things. Now, when it comes to AI, and me personally, when I mentor people, I tell them they're not at least playing around with the area behind. Now, you and your positions, what can you give as far as career advice for people wanting to get into security, specifically AI and security? Anything that you recommend to them, anything you would tell your younger self to do if you could do differently? So any part of that question you can answer, whatever makes sense for you.
We're leaders on here. I think on Tuesday, I had a one-on-one with someone who is not in my team, who is not in my organization, but who wants to move into the tech space. And I asked them, had have they had a conversation with their current leadership about what their aspirations were? And the response was no. So how can you expect someone to give you an opportunity if you don't express, this is what I would like to do? You got to open your mouth and speak and act, number one. I don't care what field you're in. Make it known, first of all. When we were coming up in the industry, there were SANS and how many other training, handful of training companies out there that were charging at that point $3,000. I think SANS has gotten around $8K now for a class. That's crazy, right? But now I tell them, do you know YouTube? You can learn. You can learn anything that you want. Like, you're your own barrier, right? So again, communication, make it known. Don't expect that someone owes you anything. You have to take, charge in your own career about where you want to go and things of that nature. The last thing I would say, AI. If you're young right now, you're in the space, like I think it's the second most innovative invention in my lifetime right now is AI. And I'm just thankful that I'm on the mid part of my career, I can ride this out because it is, the trajectory, it's just still, it's amazing where this thing is going. So I can only imagine if I was just graduating college or just now entering the space, where this is going to be 20 years from now. It's just going to be, out of nowhere. So my suggestion would be to learn as much as you can, be vocal, read as much as you can. AI has applications in so many different fields from, healthcare, financial. I was telling a colleague yesterday that in Atlanta, where I live, I noticed that the city of Atlanta was looking for an engineer in the traffic division, someone who had AI skills. Because they want to leverage that to streamline how red lights and everything is now are operating throughout the city to better manage, traffic flow and traffic congestions during rush hour traffic at certain times. But it has so many different applications. So learn how to build a model, learn how to configure it, learn how to, put guardrails around it, learn how to test it. Like that will be my recommendation.
Yeah, and extend on that, one thing I would give to folks trying to get into the field as well, when I started in cybersecurity around 2010, like I applied for just a general computer science job. I didn't know it had anything to do with cybersecurity until probably I got hired, right? Now cybersecurity roles and requisitions have exploded. Like everywhere you go, cybersecurity this, cybersecurity that, cybersecurity majors, cybersecurity training, by folks who don't seem to be tied to any specific organization. Just people spin up their own, take my 10-week class and I'll get you a job in 5 days, right? So guaranteed, right, or your money back, right? Yeah. But those people, when they come to, especially a place like Amazon, AWS, to apply, the problem is when they go under the scrutiny of the interview process, you can tell that all they did was maybe read and play around with a couple labs and that was it. That will not do in today's market, right? Because everybody and their mama wants to get into cybersecurity now, right? As they should, right? Is a big bursting field. We need the people. We're under hired in that space, right? So what I encourage people to do is deep dive, spin up labs, really understand and like Wes was saying, YouTube. So I just had someone else. I had someone come to me asking about understanding or getting up to speed on offensive security. And I didn't send them to a certification. I didn't send them to a school. I said, this is what you do, man. Like all your free time, here's some YouTube channels. We're at DEF CON, and I'm sure they're here, but shout out to John Hammond, Stoic, IPPSec as well. There's a lot of great content on YouTube. Emulate what they do. Build up those labs. Build up virtualization. Back in my day, part of my lab actually had to be physical machines. I had to take old laptops and put them together on the LAN. But now you can spin up, a VirtualBox, VMware for free, AWS Cloud, right, et cetera, and build up your own lab there. You have to do the work. You have to deep dive on it. Your competition is deep diving on this stuff. So when in the interview, they're asking the follow-up questions. Like, okay, explain, the TCP/IP layer. Okay, great. Now give me examples of each layer. Show me what type of security issues might have at each layer, right? That will be embedded in you. And that's even for me, even for someone that didn't come from cybersecurity before I got my job. What I loved about it, how I knew it was in the right place, is that on my own, even after getting the job, I dove deep into that field. And even during the job, that's what allowed me to flourish and get new opportunities. So that's what I recommend.
Just a small addition to that, as well as, do your deep dive, but from the offensive perspective, also learn what those vulnerabilities are in depth. So one thing that I recommend people do is look at frameworks like MITRE Atlas, where it's kind of like MITRE ATT&CK, but for AIs. You're going through everything that has to do with AIs and the different attacks associated with it. They provide resources, examples, and it can really help kind of solidify both sides, like the development, management of AIs, LLMs, and then also the vulnerabilities that can pop up in them.
I'd say that everything you said is correct, dive deep into it. But another thing is, don't forget the fundamentals. Before AI, secure by design was a thing. After AI, secure by design will still be there. And so hold on to those fundamentals and yeah, just stick to them.
Probably the best point of the day.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. All right, thank you for that. So I want to open it up, see if anybody want to have any questions to the panel. Want to be able to give a chance for people to get some more information that we may have missed or they want to dive a little deeper in. So if anybody would like to ask a question.
Honestly, man, I got to get up.
Thanks. First of all, I'll say great talk. Wes, I know Wes for a minute. We're all together. But I really want to say another thing, because you have to, there's a number of things. I work for PwC. I'm an enterprise security architect. So do know that there are multiple avenues into security, right? There's the engineer side. I was on the engineering side for a while. It's architecture side. If you're not as much into, having your hands on the keyboard, there's a lot of GRC related things. As far as it goes with AI, you have to their point, to reemphasize their point, you have to learn what it is that it does and how it works, right? Like learn Python, learn data science, learn things, because in order to better utilize something and make it work for you and innovate on it, you need to know the basics anyway. And the last thing I'll say is use your network. Build a network of people that you can connect with, that can get you that opportunity, put you in front of people that can, I know back half of my career, my network has been invaluable in getting me to where I am right now. So your network with people, talk to people. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Who's next?
Real quick, I want to add on to that real quick. The other thing that I've seen separate even engineers, even if they're super technical, right? Because at a certain point, everybody's going to be super technical. And we talk about at Amazon, we have this concept of L5 to L6 engineer, right? And the biggest thing that separates them that I've seen is communication and being able to write and communicate ideas and work amongst different audiences, business audience, technical audience, et cetera. So yeah, network, but also just communication piece is what I've seen to be a big separator as well.
Thank you.
I guess two questions in one. What is something that someone who's a blue teamer can do to transition to the red team side? And are there projects that I can do in my own development in my current role to help get the experience there for when I do interview?
Okay, so one thing that you may have noticed, a lot of those tools that you're using on the blue team side are also used by the red team. So those things you use for remote management, used for exploitation. Blue team should be using Bloodhound for enumeration, getting visibility in their networks. Getting a look at those and seeing from your perspective what a red teamer would see if they were executing code on your network is a good way to get that other perspective. Some things you can do to kind of help with that. Building a home lab is something I think everyone should do. It forces you to get really in depth with that technology. There's probably some of the stuff that you're using at work that you can then use at home and then build out a space to try some of those things out. So one of the first labs I created was just like a Metasploitable box and a Kali box, and just seeing what I could do, even like shooting a Hail Mary and seeing what I can do with all those shells. But yeah, that'll get you to the point where you know the tools and you can talk to them. So when you're transitioning, interviewing for that next role, you have that in-depth knowledge and you can display that.
Hi. So I have a question. So I have a few, I've started out in the offensive security, and it's great listening from people of those experiences with this. Because one of the first few challenges which I have is the pen test which I work on this lasts for a couple of weeks. One of the challenges which I face is by the time I try to understand the service and try to find vulnerability in it, the pen test is over. And of course, and I understand that's kind of common in the world of offensive security. But what's the best way to continue building on these skills and at the same time work into the service or applications work? What's the best way to do it? What advice do you have?
Sorry, could you repeat that last part at the end? What's the best way to?
What's the best way to deal with during a pen test? What's your advice to someone starting off with offensive security? How do you do that always?
Sure. I mean, so I run an organization of blue teamers, essentially. When we just hire someone, or even if you are a third-party vendor that is working on my program, we spend 3 to 4 months training, having that person shadow other testers. Because, for an example, if you're at AWS, the infrastructure, the technologies, the services, it is so complicated and complex. I mean, I've been there now 4 years. I still learn something new every day, and every escalation, I'm learning something new. So I can only imagine for an engineer who's day-to-day, switching from one test to the next every 2 or 3 days. I would really, speak with your leadership, any other senior engineers that are in your organization, and I would spend some time shadowing them and trying to download as much information as you can from them. Like, repetition is always one way to become better. To Prudence' point earlier, that's the fundamentals. I don't care what new technology it is that you're trying to learn to get up to speed with. In order to operate at that pace and scale, you need to sit side by side and shadow with someone who is calibrated at that level, who knows the technology, but also who can show you the ropes. So that's my advice as a senior leader who has helped develop a program that onboards engineers and things of that nature.
To kind of add to that repetition part, one thing that really helped me when I was in that situation, as you keep going through those different pen tests, even if they're 2 weeks, you're going to start seeing patterns, things that are almost always the same, even if the organizations change. And as you start to take notes and figure that out, you can start control Fing for those keywords, so this thing that I've scoped for, I can get the details for it and then target it later on. And so once you're 6 or 7 in, you'll realize, I've got the run book for this. I've got a process that I can follow every time, and you can use that process to approach future pen tests.
Good question.
Okay, so this pivots a little bit away from the career stuff, I suppose, but my question was if anyone's done or can speak to any sort of validation of traditional, security controls and best practices against AI augmented attacks and AI, augmented offensive security, and whether or not you find that those tools and best practices are still effective. That was initially my question, but then I thought about it for a little bit, and I guess I started to question myself, if it matters at all, because say for example, a really overly simple example, there's malicious PowerShell code. Like, do I care if it was created by, some sort of AI or not, or do I care it was human created? If the tool still works, if the best practice still works, does it really matter? So I was curious, like, what your thoughts were on that and how you reconcile those things.
Well, first, to clarify, are you asking if it matters if the malicious code or payload that you found was AI generated or not?
Correct. And if you find that traditional security controls, EDRs, all those things are still effective against anything that is AI augmented.
Yeah. So I think in certain cases, and this is just my opinion, certain cases it can be important because if you're using the same model, for example, to generate all your payloads, you're going to find that pattern. If they're complex enough, it's going to have its own signature. And so that can be used by a blue team to track that sample or that family of malware that actor is using in that network. And what was your other question? Sorry. Against like EDR or okay. So at the base of it, most EDRs that I've encountered, they're not just based off of simple signatures. They're also looking at the behaviors. So everyone's going to load something into memory. Everyone's going to execute code or look at certain parts of memory, like LSAS, for example. If you can trigger based off of those actions, you can stop that kill chain, essentially. So everything's going to look the same when it's actually running, is what I'd say.
Yeah, I don't want to, I'm trying to make sure I don't repeat what Sammy said, but I mean, the first thing that came to mind is, so I'm an adjunct teacher in the evenings, right? And my college students love them, but you start to see that someone who's quiet in class all of a sudden has the best well-written essay for their homework or their take-home exams, right? And a year or two ago, it was a lot easier to identify that. Recently, in the recent semester, it's a lot harder. So just something that comes to mind is as AI gets more mature, these patterns will, at least to the human eye, become less obvious. But to Sammy's point, I trust that our defenders, right, the people at these companies writing the EDRs, even though, as a red teamer, you kind of evade them anyway, but I trust that they are actively looking into this and will write detections to find things that even a human would think, like, oh, this looks natural, this looks, normal, this must be okay. But I'm hoping that our defenders out there are also, developing with the times there.
Thank you for that. I have a pretty simple question that could lead to a convoluted answer. How do you know when you have exhausted the amount of growing you can do in a role is? How do you know when it's time to move on from something?
I think that's a good question. For me, when I feel like I've stopped learning, I think it's time to change. So yeah, learning. Make sure you're learning. Make sure you're growing. I think that's the metric for me. I need to make sure I'm growing, and not just in technical skills, but in communication skills also. Over the past 6 months, I have grown in communication in terms of how to write better documents, and that has been really eye-opening for me. So I'm always looking for growth. When I see that I've stopped growing, I need to change. I need to move. That's it for me.
I think that's a great one. Being a technologist, cybersecurity professional, whatever you want to call yourself, learning is always going to be the constant thing, a part of your career. So if you're not learning in the role, you should move on. As you become older and you get more mature and seasoned in your career, 25 years in the game now, if I'm not having the impact that I want to have, that's another indication. So I get to do talks like this. This is actually a part of my job now. It's me paying it forward to the next generation. And so as you continue to mature in your career, the things that you need become different. It's no longer about someone here can give me an extra $10,000. It's who am I reporting to? What impact am I having? Do I have the right budget? Like things like that become very important. So it just depends on where you are and what you need. So that could be the convoluted response.
Yeah, it's a good question. I want to add something to that from the other side of things. So I didn't really talk about my background. I'm a former CIO of a public company, been in numerous lead roles. And one thing I've done when anybody's reported to me on my team is checking with them to find out what their goals are, short-term, long-term goals, make sure I'm empowering them to get there. I always tell them I'm here to make sure you're ready for your next job, not your current job. Yep. So it's kind of on both sides. There should be an atmosphere where you're promoted, where you're pushed to do more also. But you find yourself stagnant, yeah, it may be time to make a change or try to push yourself. But it depends on the environment you're in.
Hello. This is kind of to follow up on this question. Can you share what is your motivation? I mean, for each of you, what is your aspiration? Like, what you have to build a specific mindset. We have adversaries that are highly motivated and highly trained. So, what is your motivation like for each of you?
So, I mean, just a small background. I was raised by a single parent, mother who was my mother and my father. My mother didn't graduate high school. She got married at 15. She had 2 kids, and she had to raise 6 of her own siblings. She was one of 16. So my motivation was I wanted to have a different life than what my mother grew up with, and I wanted to make her proud. And so I was always an overachiever in that regard. From a professional perspective, I always wanted to be a CISO. I wanted to be a chief information security officer. I wanted to be the guy, quote unquote. And then as I got older and I started to get into some more senior level positions and my responsibilities started to increase, I started to reevaluate that. Because I started having some health issues. I was a relatively young person. And I said, well, why do you want that role? Is it because of ego? You just want the title, etc.? You can be well paid and not have to be the guy. You don't have to worry about being woken up in the middle of the night and having to be the guy to provide an answer and things of that nature. And so my motivation started to change. And so, yeah, we all want the bag. We all want to get paid well, which we do in this industry. But it slowly started to become what is going to be my legacy? What is the impact that I'm leaving behind? Who are the other young professionals that I would have the pleasure of kind of pouring into and helping them get to the level that I've achieved? Someone poured into me, someone mentored me, and so I'm doing the same thing. So that motivates me now. And you can say that, say, well, Wes, you've been 25 years, you made your money and all that stuff. Yeah, but things change. You may still want to be a CISO. I don't necessarily want to be a CISO anymore. I don't want that headache. So it just depends what you want to do. Some folks want to be an engineer, a technologist their whole career, and they want to be, they want to dive deep in every new technology that comes out, and they would do that until they're in their 70s, right? I work with a bunch of engineers to this day at Amazon, distinguished engineers who are still technical to this day, and they were, some of the early founders of the internet, and they still love that. Literally, they're still around. So it just kind of depends on what drove you, but that's what drove me. Now I want to impact, but early on I wanted to have that big title and things of that nature, and so I modeled my career that way. It took certain roles to get me into that direction, but halfway through you're like, I don't know if I want that anymore.
So, question, because I believe I
I'll be quick, and this will be the last time I say something, right? The pace at which we operate at Amazon is extraordinary. We operate at such a large scale and at a fast pace that I don't think is mirrored in any other company other than maybe another big tech like a Google or Microsoft or something like that. We operate at such a fast pace, and it requires having a unique ability to context switch multiple times an hour, not a day, but multiple times an hour. Having that ability just calibrates you to think differently. You ask certain questions off the top. If you're, or you know, a leader asks you a question, you're going to anticipate what that is, and you're going to have your answers ready. All of that will translate to anywhere else. There's no place that I've worked at where I've had to operate at this pace and at this scale. And I think that's the biggest thing that I have to come across.
Yeah, to kind of tack on to that, that pace leads to increased output. So all these engineers in AWS, Amazon, they're creating tools, services, and when you're on a red team, you got to look at all those. You have to interact with them. You have to understand them. So it kind of forces you to do that proactive deep dive, but before that engagement comes, you got to understand those technologies, read their technical documentations, read the code, so that you can be more effective when it does come up in your next engagement.
Yeah, and a lot of what they speak to is like the Amazon LPs, leadership principles, around like bias for action, make sure you write a lot, etc. But coming from the reverse side, I think you had another part of your question, like what do we bring into AWS and Amazon? For me, even though we have the Amazon leadership principles, something I hold on to as a principle from a prior company, and we have some of the colleagues there, is do the right thing. That's something I feel really does separate me when I get feedback in Amazon from some of my peer managers. The scale and the pressure, it is kind of like New York. You make it Amazon, you make it anywhere. It's true. When I got hired, I was backfilling someone who ended up going to my prior company, and he said, and when I kept in touch with him 6 months later, and a year later, I still keep in touch with him. He was like, Jamal, there's a team of like 5 people here that do what one Amazonian is expected to do, right? So the scale and the pressure is true, but what I think kind of helps me in my role and kind of keeps me sane, I literally got the feedback this morning to your question, because that's why I love this question. They said, Jamal, one of the things they love about your directors love about you, based on feedback, is that you seem like a normal human. That is something that approachable, empathy, that's something I learned and brought into my role at Amazon. Not that Amazon doesn't teach that. I literally sat on a committee helping, with the manager characteristics and all that kind of stuff, right? But that's something I brought into this role, in which I feel like I'm not the most technical, I'm not the most well-written person, right? But something that grounds me is that I just keep it human, I keep it simple, and I make sure we still get things done. So that's what I want to do.
I think the pace is definitely there. I've never worked in such an environment. I feel like it's been 10 years already, but it hasn't been 10 years. Another thing Jamal mentioned about what I bring is, in as much as it's easy to get into Amazon and be so focused on your work, but before I came to Amazon, one thing I did was to volunteer with Women in Cybersecurity, Pi Ladies, and that's something that I've made sure I haven't changed. So I still make sure I do all those things outside of Amazon and keep my humanity and the things I love to do outside of Amazon. I make sure I still do that. So, yeah, that's basically it.
Great. So definitely want to thank all of you guys for joining our panel. Great information, I think, was shared. Thank you, audience, for joining us. We are out of time, unfortunately. I know we could probably sit here all day and talk about more about this, but feel free to come up afterwards and talk to the panelists. And but as far as today, we thank you for coming, and I hope you all have a wonderful con.
Thank you.